Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Paul McAllister, or Turnkey McAli, or Mortgage McAli. I'm here with my guest, Alan. I'm going to get you to actually introduce yourself. So thank you for joining. We're at Lend Studio. Welcome. And introduce yourself to the audience. And
Thanks for having me. My name is Alan Abbas. I'm a full-time real estate investor. I have a company called Maverick Capital that focuses on wholesaling in southwestern Ontario. And we do wholesale, fix and flip, rentals, a variety of different strategies.
I'm really excited about this topic because I honestly don't know too much about wholesaling. You know, it's something I've read up on a little bit. I've tried to get prepared, but I'm just like, I'm waiting for Alan to come and school me to what is wholesaling. So, but before we go there, I always want to start off with your first real estate deal. Like, what was your first real estate deal? And can you share that kind of experience and what it was?
For sure. So the first ever deal was a wholesale deal. So it was an off-market property in Windsor. I was driving around trying to do my first deal, driving for dollars as we call it. And I seen a for sale by owner sign, took down the info, talked to the seller, made them an offer. And before that, I actually went to a networking event in Toronto and I met another investor out of Windsor. He had like 100 properties at the time. So I stayed in touch with him. And as soon as I got that deal, it was near the casino, Caesars Windsor. I phoned him up. I said, hey, I got a potential deal for you. Are you interested? He's like, yeah, tell me about it. And he ended up buying that deal from me. So my first deal was a wholesale deal. And that was a $3,500 check, which at the time just blew my mind. And yeah, it took me a while to get it. So that was my first ever deal. And then my first property that I purchased was after I was wholesaling for almost a year. Ended up buying a fourplex to house hack and do the burst strategy, where you buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So I'm still living in one of those units today. And that was purchased December 2020. And I refinanced it last year and I'm going to refinance it again. I just got the approval from the bank. So looking forward to that.
Going back to that first deal, like, so you just went and knocked on the door, or you like, so you seen the for sale sign, you called them, you knocked on the door, like, how did that interaction actually happen?
So just driving around looking for some opportunities, and I seen the for sale by owner. I took down the number. I think they might have been in the front porch if I remember. I think I just pulled over and just walked up and started talking to them. And for context, I was working on another potential deal beforehand, so I thought that was gonna be my first deal. I was so close, and it just didn't pan out. But I felt like I was so close, like something's gotta give, and eventually that other one ended up being the first one.
And like, was the person like desperate, or like, what were their motivations to sell off market?
Well, there's so many different reasons why someone would sell off market. In this particular case, this is pre-COVID, so I believe this was around September, October of 2019. Prices were much lower, and the house was just it was in bad shape. It was a fixer-upper and needed a lot of work. I think they just didn't want to pay a realtor. They figured, hey, I can sell it myself, save a few bucks on commission. So I believe I offered them 115, if I'm not mistaken, 115,000. And looking back, that's like crazy low. But 115, I ended up selling it for 118.5. And it's funny because the buyer actually converted that single family home into a duplex, and it looks incredible now.
So did he burr it? Did he hold it?
I assume so. I haven't chatted with him recently, but for last time I checked, it took him a while he had so many projects on the go. So I would drive by a year later and it looked like the same, like not much done. And recently I drove by and it looks totally different. You could see two separate entrances, and he did mention that they were going to convert it to a duplex.
Imagine how much that's worth and how much money he just pulled out of there.
Oh yeah, easily worth between 400 and 500 minimum.
Another thing is just like, what is wholesaling? You know, what is it? What are you doing? What are you trying to achieve? Who are the players? I read something about the bird dog, or what is it? Like, give me some terms. Like, what does it mean?
Yes. So wholesaling is typically how it works is you do marketing directly to sellers. So whether that's bandit signs, sending flyers, postcards, letters, door knocking, getting a referral, so many different ways. But you want to negotiate with the seller and put the property under contract, meaning you make them an offer and they accept the offer. Now, the key is we're paying wholesale price, meaning it's under market value. Before you actually buy the property, before you get the financing and take title, you actually sell that contract to buy the property to another investor. So they're paying you a flat fee because you're bringing them a really great deal that's off market. It's not with a realtor. No one else knows about it. No competition. It's typically under market value, and there's potential for value add, and it's expected to cash flow typically. So someone's going to buy it off you because it's a really great deal that otherwise they would have known about. And the main thing, it's off market.
Why would somebody sell you a property off market undervalue?
Usually they're motivated, and the seller and or the property is in distress. So it's a fixer upper. They don't have the money to fix it. They might be behind on their mortgage. The bank might foreclose on them. Some people, they really don't like realtors. They don't like the idea of, oh, the realtor's gonna show it a couple times and make $20,000. So some people just don't like the realtors. They really need fast cash. They can't wait to list it and open house and so forth, so on. Some people are very discreet. Maybe they're going through a separation. They don't want the neighbors asking questions. They kind of just want to keep it on the DL. So really, there's so many different reasons. Some people, they don't really know what the market value is. So if they bought it, 20 years ago for super cheap, they're walking away with a payday. They don't realize that, hey, they could have potentially sold it for more.
So then from the investing side, I guess I have less questions because I know an investor is just looking at how much can that property give me. So does your fee, when you go to the investor, do you tell them like transparent, like this is what I got it for, this is what I'll give it for? Or do you say, here's a property you got, how much would you pay for it? And then do they come up with a number? Like, how does that work?
It kind of changed for me throughout the years. When I first started, I had one main buyer. So I would just like run every deal I had by him. Hey, I have it for this much. And, I would disclose. It's all in Ontario. It's going to be on the paperwork. So they will know how much you have it for and how much you're reselling it. So typically I don't like to disclose that right away because sometimes people, they're counting your pocket or they're just trying to negotiate. Even though you're bringing them a heck of a deal, they want it even cheaper. So as long as the total wholesale price works for them, it doesn't really matter what my fee is, whether it's $5,000 or $50,000 or $100,000. Like if it makes sense for you, it shouldn't matter.
So is your goal to get them to say, this is my price before they even see that purchase agreement that you have in place? Or is that?
So in the past, I called several people. I said, hey, I got this deal. How much would you be willing to pay for it? Just to get an idea. Now my approach is, because everyone wants to be number one. Hey, when you have a deal, call me first. And everyone tells me that. So to give everyone a fair chance, I just send them an email to everyone on the list. And if you're interested, you can reply to the email, give me a call, and then schedule a walkthrough, and then you can make an offer. And then typically we take the best offer. So typically I would include my price, my fee, and just say, hey, this is the total price for them. And then if they ask me, I always tell them what it is. Hey, I got it for this. This is my fee.
And then what about so for finance? I'm a mortgage guy. So what about for the financing of this stuff? So when you're going cash, are you saying you have cash in the bank, or you're just you can get? Because a lot of people say, oh, I went cash. Well, cash means you have cash in your bank, or it means I have an approval that I can get from a lender for this. So what does cash mean to you? Like, how are you financing the deal? When you go and get that under contract?
Cash to me in the real estate world, my opinion is just no conditions. A lot of people, even with a realtor, they'll make a cash offer, quote unquote cash. It's not savings in a bank. It might be a HELOC, it might be a private lender. It's just saying no conditions, firm offer, there's no backing out. Now, when I work with sellers, since there's not all this competition, typically I can make a conditional offer. So if I don't have a buyer and it's not something I personally want to buy, I can legally back out and get my deposit back. So I typically try to make it conditional unless it's an incredible deal and I know one way or another I'm either going to assign it to another person and wholesale it, or I'm going to come up with the cash and buy it.
Who else is involved in the is there anyone else we're not talking about that's involved in the wholesaling kind of in the game or in the process?
Those are the main parties for sure. Now, it's different because there's a lot of content coming from the US that Canadians watch and listen to, but it's not exactly applicable to Canada. So in the States, usually when you're selling a wholesale deal, the buyer is coming in with cash and literally cash, or maybe a private lender, or they get financing some way or another, typically hard money private lender. It's not with a bank, right? Now in Canada, from my experience, our purchase price is much higher than a lot of the States. So it's very difficult for most buyers to come in with cash. It does happen, especially if it's a lower purchase price, 200,000 and less, but sometimes we're wholesaling properties at 500,000. That's tough to do cash. So the majority of the time, these buyers, they're getting financing, and it really differs because a lot of the banks, they don't do too many assignment deals. And when they do, it's like a pre-construction in Toronto, which is very common. In Windsor and the rest of the province, if it's not pre-construction, assignment is very rare. So since the lenders are not too familiar with it, it kind of raises all these questions. And in my experience, a lot of the lenders, especially like the banks, they don't finance the wholesale fee. So that could be a problem if you got a really, really good deal and you're charging a high fee. That means, typically when you get a mortgage, it's 20% down. But if you do 20% of my purchase price plus a big assignment fee, it's a lot of cash to dish out. So as much as possible, we try to roll in the wholesale fee with the in the total purchase price, so they can get a mortgage for the full amount, so it's less cash out. I have seen it done though, where RBC, for example, I had a buyer who used RBC and they financed the total amount with the fee. I've seen it done with Simply Financial. I've seen it done recently. And now when the market has cooled off, sometimes they're apprehensive about it. So it really depends on the lender.
Yeah, the lenders are always adjusting for their risk profile.
Yeah, and I want to add that usually private lenders, they don't have a problem lending on the total price as long as the property appraises for that value and it's worth that, because typically we're getting it under market value. So they will appraise the actual value, whereas the bank typically looks at the lesser amount.
So when I buy a property, I put an offer, I go get an appraisal. Is this the same steps as buying an actual property and wholesaling, or are you getting the appraisal before, or how does that kind of work?
Typically, it's the same process. Once I get the deal under contract and I assign it to a buyer, they make me a deposit, we sign the paperwork. They basically took over my purchase agreement with the seller. So when you're going through the financing, typically it's the same process where the bank sends an appraiser and you do the appraisal, it comes in. If everything checks out, it's, paperwork goes to the lawyers. It's typically the same process. Sometimes we've done an appraisal beforehand. And one example is a fourplex in Leamington, where the seller initially wanted 500. I thought that was a great price because I know in Windsor some of them are close to $1 million, 800,000-900,000. So I thought 500,000 was a great price. I go view the property. It needs a ton of work, easy 100,000, if not upwards of 2. So in that case, and there wasn't too many comparable sales because it's a small town. All the sales were like from a year ago. So we're like, hey, let's get it appraised. So we hired an appraiser before we had a buyer. And then the appraisal came in way below. It was like 300,000. I called the seller and I said, hey, like it only appraised for 300. We need to renegotiate. And then the seller's lawyer, he recommended that the seller gets his own appraisal, and it came in at 340, which is still much below the 400. So then I think we agreed in the middle at like 325, and then we had a buyer at 340. He ended up getting private financing, and actually he was really smart about it because he talked to the seller and he got a 20% VTB, so 20% seller financing, 80% private loan. Basically bought it with zero down and just needs to come up with the cash for renovations.
The reason it purchased was so low, is it because the condition of the property, or was it because the rents were low, or what's the story of why you thought it was 5? And
another factor that I forgot to mention was when we got it appraised, the zoning was not actually for a fourplex. It was only zoned as a duplex. but it did have 4 self-contained units for like 30 years, and supposedly the seller bought it like that. So there was like a question mark surrounding that, because our concern was, hey, what if we buy it and then the city inspects and says, hey, you got to get rid of 2 units? Like, we don't know what's going to happen. And then trying to call the town, no one wanted to give us a clear answer. They said, they didn't really say yes or no type of thing. It was just like, it's zoned for a duplex, a fourplex is not allowed. It's like, okay, are you guys gonna, stop us from operating this property? They wouldn't give us a clear answer. So it's kind of like buyer beware.
So one, like, lenders don't like illegal units. So that's one thing to note, is when you're putting offers on properties and there is an illegal unit, it's not a conforming use. What you could run into issues, especially with A lenders and even B lenders. Private lenders will most likely be open to take that risk, but they're going to charge you for that risk, right? That's why private lenders are okay with it most of the time, I would say. So I'm still thinking about this property, 340. Do you know where that property is? Do you know any feedback, I guess, post sale? Cause
yeah, the guy did very well. I'm so happy for him. He made a post on it on social media. I actually ran into him at the gym. So, and I brought a couple of contractors. They said, it's going to cost $200 to fix. He did it for $100. And there's different ways of approaching renovations, right? If you want to strip it all down and do it the right way, or if it's like you're working with what you got and you just make it work. So I think he did the latter. But he put $100,000 into it, bought it for $340. So he's in it for $440 plus holding costs. The 20% seller financing, he actually negotiated zero payments, zero interest for the first 6 months. And then afterwards, he was paying 5%. And mind you, he closed in January. Right now we're in May, and he's done this project. So 3 units were vacant. There's a 1 long-term tenant. I think he still has that 1 long-term tenant. So I believe he renovated 3 units fully. And I believe it appraised for like $690. So he's going to repay the private lender, pay off the seller, that remaining 20%. And he's going to pocket $60,000 after all of his expenses, and gross income's about $6,000 per month, and he's cash flowing over $1,000. And it's crazy because he did so well, and everyone else was kind of scared to go for it. Yeah.
So I think that I always talk about this a lot, about like, I try to be a real estate coach to people a lot, and like the importance of a vision. The importance of a vision. I always say it. You need to have a vision. You need to be able to execute that vision. And that's what he did, right? 20 people can walk through there and they're like, no, no, no. But one person it takes to have one vision and have the balls to execute that vision, right? Because it's one, you can tell he's very creative because he came in the deal with 0 cash in. And I don't know how he financed his renovation costs, but I'm sure it was creative. He was in, he was out. Within 6 months, he's already, he has no money in besides the renovation costs, and he's already cashed out all that money in more, and he's cash flowing. Like, he really hit it out of the park is what I see. I get excited hearing about that. Those are really special deals. It's cool that, like, from a wholesaling point of view, you were a part of it. You led to him doing his thing. So, like, do you ever, like, think, like, I should be the one before, more than just wholesaling? What about getting in the game of doing what he did? Does that ever kind of...
For sure. And I am in the game now. And when I first started, it started with like bad credit, no money. I was in debt, 50 grand. So all I knew was wholesaling, because the idea is no money, no credit, no experience. You can start flipping real estate and make money. So that's what really attracted me to it. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes when you assign a deal to another buyer and you find out how much they flipped it for or how much it appraised for, you're like, damn, I should have, bought it myself. And sometimes you buy something, you're like, oh, I should have maybe wholesaled that one and assigned it. So it's always like, almost like grass is greener on the other side. I remember once I assigned a deal. This is going back to 2020 on Gladstone in Windsor, Walkerville, very desirable rental area. I assigned it for only $5,000. Could have made way more because so many people wanted it. But the flipper made like $60,000 in a couple months. I'm like, damn it, I should have flipped that one. Now with the Leamington one, it's, 45 minutes away from Windsor, let's say, getting contractors there. He had a really great contractor on his team that worked with the budget. So that one isn't something that I necessarily regret, but that always comes up. It's like, there's a saying I heard that stuck with me. It's keep the best and wholesale the rest. So whatever opportunities that I think were going to be great long-term rentals, I'd like to buy myself, and whatever else I'll just assign. And my personal strategy is basically, my business focuses on active income, so primarily wholesaling and some flipping. So flip and wholesale single family duplexes, triplexes, and try to keep for the long run the 4 or 5 units and up. And not every property that's 4 or 5 units, but that's typically my game plan. I like the multi-units, I like to burr them, and that's my strategy to build long-term wealth.
I have the same strategy. I just do it really I like single family homes. I like to convert them into 3 units. I always like a property that has at least 3 different ways to get paid. That's my strategy. Is I want 3 ways to get paid. I'm never relying on one. And if I can get 1.5 of those ways to get paid per month, it should be able to break even. So that's kind of a general rule that I've went by. It's got me kind of to where I am. So I know what you mean by keeping those 4 or 5, or keeping the more cash, right? I don't want to ever just rent a house or rent one and rely on one way of getting paid.
And also sometimes when I approach a deal, first instinct is to wholesale it. For some reason, it might be a good deal, but if no one sees the vision or has that vision and no one jumps on it, I might consider to flip it. Hey, if I can't sell it on the market for the price I want, maybe I'll just keep it in my portfolio. So I agree with you there to have multiple exit strategies.
And so you said something about that stood out to me, about 45 minutes away in Leamington. And like that keeps you apprehension to want to get involved maybe with the contractors. So like for me, that's Turnkey McAli is something where I try to I am the middleman for everything for an investor. So I would go to an investor, I would work with an investor and say, okay, hey, listen, what are your goals? Where are you? What are your goals? And how can I get you from point A to point B to point C, and have a strategic plan? But an investor that doesn't have enough time to come up with a vision, to execute that vision, to get the contractor, to deal with the contract, to deal with the design, to deal with setting up their taxes, all those types of things is kind of what I offer. So I try to coach people through it, having a vision, getting the right contractor, getting the right people in place. So do you find these investors, are they usually local investors? Are they out of town? Like, how are they navigating through getting the right contractor if they're far away? And those types of things, right? Because you said like you don't even want to go 45 minutes away to deal with that market. And I agree. I try to, I'm an Amherstburg guy. I'm from there. I can do everything. I know the municipality. I know the contractors. I know everybody that I need to know. Does that deter you from entering different markets?
Leamington has a very low vacancy rate, and it's not like 4 hours away. So it's not like I want to stay away from Leamington. It's just more of the timing thing. I had a partner on that wholesale deal. There's other factors involved, and it was like a huge investment, but you could always raise the money. But yeah, there's other reasons why I guess I passed on that one. I would be open to it in the future if the right opportunity came up at the right time. But a lot of the buyers are actually out of town. They're from GTA or elsewhere. They people from Toronto come to Windsor all the time, cheaper price points. And, you can rely on your network and just ask for referrals for contractors. I've referred people to my contractors. There's different groups that we're part of in the investing community, right? Mastermind groups, coaching, just networking events. So you can meet so many different people that way. So a lot of the times it's relying on another fellow investor to say, hey, who do you use for this? Who do you use for that? Do you have anyone you recommend? So I mean, if they're from Toronto, they're investing in Windsor, like obviously it can be done. 45 minutes isn't really that far. I think it was more of like a timing thing. And for me, wholesaling, this is basically my day job. This is what I do full time, right? So this is what I do for income. I flip these contracts, flip houses to make money, and then I want to invest that money in long-term rentals. So kind of have to pick and choose which ones I want to buy and keep for myself.
Makes total sense. If you were to speak to your buyers that you're going after, like look in that camera and say, like, what are you looking for in a buyer? What do you want buyers to know? And how do they contact you? Yeah, what is your pitch to a buyer?
If you're looking to buy in Windsor, get connected with our team. We have off-market opportunities all over southwestern Ontario. Some really great deals that are under market value. Just know what kind of property you're looking for, whether it's single family, multi, what your exit strategy is. Have your financing in order, whether it's a bank or a private lender. Talk to a broker. I can refer you to some people as well. And it really comes down to just knowing what you want. And when you see what you want, you have to act fast, because I could tell you so many stories where after the fact people message me, hey, is this property still available? Is that property still available? No, it's not. You snooze. Or some people kind of say, hey, I'm interested, and they kind of drag their feet. So I think you have to be decisive. When there's an opportunity, if it's really a great deal, everyone wants it at the same time. And, if it's a great deal for you, just pay the full wholesale price, because a lot of times people want a nickel and dime, and it just rubs you the wrong way. It's like, hey, I'd rather deal with Paul because, he doesn't hassle me on the price. He knows he's getting a really great deal. It's $50K under market. So you just got to be decisive. That's what I would say.
What about from the seller perspective? What would you look into that camera and say to the sellers?
I'd say we are the most hassle-free approach to selling your home privately. So no open house, no lawn signs. We're very flexible with closing. We'll close on your timeline. And we usually tell sellers, whatever you're not bringing to your next home, just leave behind. So whether that's junk, appliances, belongings, it's kind of a hassle to get a junk removal company and take it to the dump. It costs money. It's stressful. So whatever you don't want, leave behind. We cover your lawyer's selling costs. We can pay for your moving up to $2,500. In certain cases, we can even give you a cash advance. Usually you get paid on the closing date. If a seller is very strapped for cash, they can't wait 30 days for the closing. We can give you a cash advance. So, and that way we make it super simple and easy for sellers to sell.
Where are you now in terms of deals you got going on now? And what is the future of your company? Like, where are you trying to take this?
Yeah, great question. So right now I'm still focusing on the wholesaling. I really want to scale that aspect up. I've been a one-man show for the most part. So I have a couple of salespeople on the team now that I'm training. I'd like them to replace me, and just grow the team with acquisitions reps. So that's us buying deals, and then maybe even replace myself in the disposition role, so selling the contract, and just expand into more markets. And that's what's going on the wholesale side. We have a few deals under contract right now. So, they can be, if you're on the buyer's list, we'll send that out. But other than that, I have the fourplex that I'm currently house hacking, and just got the approval for a refi with RBC. So I'm stoked to be working with a bank. And the other project that you've seen is I have a sevenplex on Ottawa Street. It's mixed use, 2 commercial, 5 residential, and the plan for that is another burr that I'll renovate, rent, refinance, and I'm actually going to do an office hack in one of the commercial units. I'm going to open up an office for our company, Maverick Capital, to have an office space. And what's really cool about this property, it's got a huge basement with like 10-foot ceilings. So after I turn over the 7 units and refinance in the near future, maybe 1 or 2 years, I will add units in the basement. And then once that is stabilized, I'd be looking at the next multifamily purchase. Aside from that, I got into mobile homes, trailers, mobile homes that are in a trailer park. I kind of stumbled upon it last year. I did very well with the first one. And I like them because there's multiple exit strategies. You could wholesale it, so buy it private, sell it on the MLS without doing anything. You could actually flip it, where you put the money in renovations and sell it for a higher amount. Certain parks, you can rent them out. And another idea is seller financing. So actually, I can actually sell this to someone and hold the note for them, so they can pay me monthly payments as the lender. So I was attracted to them from that standpoint. So I bought 3 so far. I sold 2. The first one was really great. Bought it for 32, sold it for 79, netted over 40K without doing any work to it. I bought another one 2 doors down. That one didn't work out as well. It just needed way more work. That one was almost like a break even. I think we made like $2,000. And I have another one in Essex that's getting ready to be listed on the market soon. That one should do well. We bought it for 50, put about 80 grand into it. I'm hoping to sell it for over 200.
And how much time did it take you for that renovation?
Longer than I'd want, for sure. You know how it goes with renovation. Sometimes it drags on. Really, I've been waiting the last couple of weeks for the kitchen guy to get those cabinets in there and final touches, but it's all painted, new flooring. We even put on new roof and stuff, new windows. So it looks totally different than what it was. We're hoping to do well on that one.
Well, good luck. Anything else you want to say to the audience before we close?
If you're looking for some off-market opportunities, reach out to myself. You can find me on Facebook, Alan Abbas, or IG, Alan Abbas 17, or visit our website, maverick-capital.ca, and get in touch with us. We'll add you to our buyers list. That way you can see all the off-market opportunities we have.
Thank you very much for joining us. Again, I'm Mortgage McAli. I'm at Lend City. Since you're plugging, I got to plug the Canadian Real Estate Network. Please make sure if you are looking for information on anything regarding real estate, I encourage you to just Google Canadian Real Estate Network. A lot of powerful information for you. Lend City, I encourage you we are an mortgage brokerage that focuses on investors. We take first-time home buyers, we take everything, but investors is our sweet spot. So thank you very much and enjoy.